Hi, I'm your uncle who keeps giving you gonorrhea, Yvonnedeculo.
And I'm the goddamn future of drag. I'm also an outfit repeater, Jay Gloom.
And welcome to the Victory Lap, where we will be discussing the latest episode of All-Stars Season 2 of
Rupaul'S Drag Race.
I am in a dress.
With unshaven legs.
Unshaven legs. I also have an unshaven face. This is the texture of a face which did not shave before I got into drag, or as I like to call, the ginger minge. So this episode was a doozy.
A pither.
Team challenges are always like the deadly episodes. And
Yeah.
I'm never like a huge fan of like these small team challenges because they're usually really cool, but they always knock out the good ones. Like
Yes.
we had with Trixie, like we had with Alyssa the first time around. And this was a very interesting challenge because a member of Relaska Talks was in each team. Now I know that they've all been like, oh, Relaska Talks, it's not really a thing anymore. But the Relaska Talks girls are not going to send each other home. So we're going to talk about the top team first. Fifi and Roxy, I guess, because Fifi was in the top. They seemed to like them the best.
Yeah, but I mean, they
Which is
weren't
weird.
overly fond of Roxy's performance. I thought Fifi did a great job.
I didn't really find Fifi very funny. I didn't really like her acting. I didn't like Roxy's acting. To me, they were the worst team.
Roxy can't act. I'm all for her redemption. She's much more tolerable. I kind of like her this season, but she can't act.
Now let's move on to the middle team, which was Detox and Katya, who I would say was the best team because I thought they were both hysterical.
Detox and Katya were doing a sequel to Thelma and Louise.
But as zombies.
But it was zombies because they went off into the Grand Canyon and they died and they came back as zombies. It was really funny. I thought they were both hilarious. I thought they both committed like completely to the video. Katya did have some struggles getting it going, which was kind of a theme for all three of the groups. Is that one person just had it from the go, and one person
really needed
was
some
really
motivation.
struggling. Despite that, I thought Katya was hilarious. I thought Detox was fantastic. I thought their script was probably the funniest.
I thought it was most interesting.
Theirs
for
was,
sure.
was definitely the most interesting script. There wasn't actually a bad script this time.
No, which I was surprised
Which
about.
usually
Usually there's
one
bad
bad one. But theirs was really good. Bryce looked real good.
Bryce looked
too.
amazing.
Also, before we go any further, can we just give a shout out to Big Frida just randomly appearing
Yeah,
in
that
2 out of 3
was
videos?
did she show up in
She was
Detox
she was
and Katya's?
She did not show up in Detox and Katya's, but she was one of the 2 stage managers
Yes.
with Jason in Show Squirrels.
And then she was the nurse.
And she was the nurse in Whatever Happened to Baby JJ, or What Had Happened to Baby JJ.
I personally think that Katya and Detox were the best ones, and
Yeah.
yet they seem to be judged more on how they acted during the production of it, not necessarily the end product.
Yeah.
And that confuses me because it's like, that's what a rehearsal is for. And they did the same
Yeah.
thing with judging the teams in the dance challenge in season 7. They were like, oh, you guys had a hard time getting off the ground during practice. It's a practice! They're not supposed to be perfect right off the get-go.
Matters how it
turns
looks
out.
in the end, not getting there, as long as the end product is good. And I mean, as long as you didn't like it. Here's the thing. I think what Bob did in the singing challenge is 100 times worse than needing a minute to get on your feet. Or what Sharon did in her acting challenge. Talking back, getting snappy, losing your temper because of your frustration. I find that worse than just needing a couple tries to get it going. As long as you get it in the final take, and it wasn't literally chopped together word by word to make it seem like you had the lines, like the Shakespeare challenge, I think that's fine. So like the fact that it took Roxy, Katya, and Alyssa a couple times to get it going, I don't think that's nearly as
It
bad.
shouldn't matter.
And again, they got there at the end, and that's what mattered.
And then our last team was Alaska
and Alyssa.
I've always felt like in the acting challenge from season 5 that the first person that Alyssa should have picked was Alaska and then picked Jinx, because then she wouldn't have gotten stuck with Coco. And I think that somebody else may have gone home rather than Alyssa in that challenge. And so it was kind of a weird cathartic moment for me as a fan, because I'm like, finally, these two get to work together, and maybe that'll help. No, Alyssa still went home in the acting challenge.
I think the Thelma and Louise or Thelma and Wheezy script, that was pretty evenly
pretty
paced.
balanced, yeah.
That was perfectly balanced. However, clearly the mama character in Show Squirrels, Mama Versace, was clearly the star that you could do the
breakout.
most with, whereas Baby Versace was the Princess Di.
Yeah.
And the same with Alaska and Alyssa's, where the Baby JJ was the breakout one. Because, I mean, it's a fucking Betty Davis impersonation. Like, you can't lose with that. Whereas the other one was the straight man to it.
Yeah.
And I thought Alyssa did a fantastic job. I've seen bits and pieces of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Alaska was so spot on. From the makeup to the styling to the portrayal, she was spot on.
And her physical comedy was
comedy
funny
with
coming
the walker,
in and rolling around and backwards and forwards and backwards again.
It was
hysterical.
Sublime from start to finish. But I mean, Alyssa didn't do a bad job with her character. I forget who is opposite Betty Davis in that movie, and that makes me a terrible gay, and I'm sorry, it's Betty Davis. And it's Joan Crawford.
Okay.
So Alyssa was doing the Joan Crawford role. But the truth of the matter is,
hilarious.
That is kind of
considering
funny.
what she's done
yeah,
this
it's
season.
Joan Crawford, isn't it?
I don't know.
99% sure. So if you go back and watch Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, I mean, Alyssa needed to be a little louder, and she needed to
project.
enunciate and project. But I mean, she was giving me Joan Crawford in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So it was just a situation where there was the winning role and there was the losing role.
Yeah.
You really needed to amp it up if you were that secondary role in those two scripts. Again, I don't think the Thelma and Wheezy had...
It was pretty balanced.
If I was going to look at this entire episode as being very produced, again, I would say that it was structured in a way that the Thelma and Wheezy one was meant to be just the straight safe part.
Yeah.
Because it was funny, it wasn't laugh out. You know, the script was good. It just wasn't like, whoa. And that was meant to be the two safe girls. Whereas the B-rolls in the other two were meant to be the bottom two.
How fucking dare you?
Except for some reason we had a bottom three again.
So the runway was a 2-in-1 runway.
I have a tearaway under my tearaway.
That was a horrible tearaway.
I was giving you a vivacious tearaway. How dare you?
And I feel like everybody brought a 2-in-1 runway. I feel like the only one who really did a reveal was Fifi. And
Fifi's
it was very well done.
It was very technically well executed.
I didn't personally care for the fashion. I liked the references and like the cosplay aspect. That it seemed very Beauty and the Beast with the color schemes.
A lot of people said that, yeah.
I appreciated that about what it was, but I just thought everything kind of looked a little like cheapish about the clothing. But she was the only one who really, I feel like, did a true reveal. Everybody else kind of did like a, look, it's a tearaway. I liked Roxy's a lot.
I thought Roxy's was really good.
Roxy's was sexy.
I understood how Fifi's worked the second I saw it, but Roxy's, I was like...
How? What devil worship
Wait.
did you have to do to get this to work?
How did she done to do that?
I really loved Katya's for the novelty of it,
Yes.
but it was a throwaway outfit. And it's like the same type of silhouette that she's been giving us this season. It was
Yeah.
that same intro one with like the cuffs and then like the Russian red and like that's Katya's thing. I like it.
Yeah.
But it's just like, can we try something new or different?
New, Barbara.
You know, and it's like if you see the caliber of everything else that people are bringing out and pulling out of their wardrobes, it's like, find something else.
Yeah, I think my problems with it were that Katya's was more of a reveal than a 2-in-1.
Yeah.
Because it was a joke reveal. Much like Alaska's was.
Yes.
The difference is Alaska's was so much more iconic.
It's fully committed.
And it was way more intense. But I thought Katya's was really funny. I thought it was very on brand
With all the
for
blacked
Katya.
out teeth, like,
Yeah, like,
what the
She
fuck?
came out in the cute little like mini dress and with the bangs and the smile, and then the disappointing part was that it didn't go from like something poofier into like a sleek gown.
Yeah.
That I think would have made it a little better for me. Or if it had like collapsed into like a torn up, creepy like
Oh, that would have been
devil
fun.
thing. If it had gone from looking great to just being
Or like a
wreck.
really disgusting nightgown.
Something like really like
blood all
creepy.
over it.
Yeah, something gross and creepy with the blacked out teeth. The funniest part to me, solely for how smoothly she did it, where she
Just
just went,
pulling off the bang piece.
and the bang piece is just gone, and she's got the pentagram in blood carved
So
into her
funny.
head.
I really liked the idea of what Detox brought. It was a little simple, and as far as, you know, the history of Drag Race, doing an Asian theme in a green color scheme has never gone well for anybody. So I don't know why she did that, but hey, it was a thing.
I will say that Alaska. I just want to talk about Alaska. Damn
We'll
it.
get there.
I will say that Detox looked gorgeous.
Her makeup was
Her
amazing.
makeup-
And where did she put that ass? Where was that?
She injected it right before she went on stage. That was probably the prettiest Detox has looked in a while.
Amazing.
But and everything was really detailed and nice about it. But for me, it was just that it was literally a tearaway, under a tearaway.
Her and Katya had the most basic of all the outfits that were there.
But at least Katya's was a reveal type thing.
And then next we have Alyssa.
Her face and her hair were fucking flawless.
I loved it.
I was obsessed. I couldn't stop looking at her face.
I was just obsessed with the outfit. The
outfit was
ensemble
great.
was
I'm
insane.
I'm not saying the outfit
High
wasn't.
fashion, super avant-garde, which is very different for Alyssa. And that was what Ginger's light-up dress should have been.
Yeah.
And to be like, oh, the lighting on the main stage, it didn't work. No, because Alyssa did that flawlessly. Do not give me that bullshit.
I think maybe it could have used a little editing because
Totally.
it literally looked like garbage bags when she came out. What it turned into was really cute. I just think it needed a few less cameras on the upper portion of it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like her future drag where it was just like, okay, well, you did need the spikes on your shoulders and on your head and this and that.
But that's always Alyssa's thing.
It's
is
Alyssa's
editing.
thing, but I would have liked to have seen, like, instead of the cameras on her shoulders, like film reels.
That would have been
Like
cute.
this, you know, like when you open up a cartridge of film, just because all the cameras on her upper torso and her shoulders made her look really boxy, and it was a pity because her face was so damn
beat.
fish.
And then last we have Alaska, who maybe did not have the best runway for the assignment,
Listen,
but the hilarity factor of that.
here's the thing:
Was-
the pre-reveal was the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. She literally
Definitely
looked
was.
like the crazy hobo lady carrying around all her bags of belongings and hoard and garbage with a dumpster version of a "do you remember where we parked the car, death becomes her veil." However,
She was fucking little pound cake. It was everything. It was everything. And
It was
part of me
fantastic.
almost, like, this is not me trying to shade Alaska or anything, but part of me feels like she knew I was paired with Alyssa, and Alyssa did not do well. So if I'm gonna survive this, I need to pull out the biggest stop that I've got, and I need to do the biggest thing that I have, because I feel like Little Pound Cake could have been like a best drag type of a look, or even like a most iconic type of a look or something, which would have been really funny. And so I feel like maybe she pulled it out to be like, this is the only thing that's gonna save me, is a really fantastic runway. Because nothing disappoints me more is when a queen is paired up in a group challenge, or when a queen doesn't do very well and then their outfit sucks.
well,
You know,
I
and-
mean, I can understand that, but Alaska did do very well.
No, but I mean,
so she had no reason to be worried.
But so did Trixie during the dance challenge. She was dragged down. It's the way that they judge in whenever they do these team challenges, it's always whatever's most convenient. Sometimes they judge them as individuals, sometimes they judge them as team members, and it doesn't matter how strong one person is. They could get dragged down by their partner. And so
This
maybe
is
this
true.
was like a moment like, maybe they'll judge us individually if one person from each team really brings it, and if there's no way that they could send us home.
See, it's funny because I just thought that she couldn't get her Betty Davis face paint off and just tweaked it into
Made it
little pound
worse.
cake. Because the funniest thing about Alaska this week for me was that Alaska just basically was like, you know what? I'm going to show them that I can do a fucking character paint. You're all going to gag on it.
It was
Because she
hilarious.
was painted as Baby JJ. Like, I mean, like, she even had the old age makeup in there. And the more I saw it, I was just like, holy shit. Like, Alaska, I mean, I recognize it as Alaska, but at the same time, I almost didn't.
It was
She
so
was
different.
almost unrecognizable as Alaska because it was such a different style of paint. She literally changed her face into Betty Davis.
She's hungry for this crown.
And for the little pound cake one, like, I could not believe that was Alaska. Snatched.
So the top two are Fifi and Alaska. I have feelings about this. I personally feel like Detox should have been in the top. I mean, I understand why Fifi was there because it is in part with the runway, and Fifi's runway was really the only one that matched the assignment. So I understand why she made it there, but I would rather see like the main challenge be like 75% of the critique and then 25% be the runway. And I feel like Detox really outperformed Fifi in the main challenge. And that's what the focus was on.
See, that's funny because I would disagree. I thought Fifi took her role and really made it her own.
I felt like it was so like acting. That's what it came
All
up to me.
of the Drag Race girls are like that. Bob is the only one I've ever seen in a challenge.
Alaska's
Bob and Thorgy.
amazing.
Alaska's good, but I still recognize it as like Alaska's acting character.
I suppose.
But I think you're just a little prejudiced because you're not happy with Miss Fiefs.
I'm not.
But I thought she did a fantastic job. I think it was well deserved. I have no qualms about Fifi being in the top.
The real pisser of this week, I mean, there are two real pissers of this week.
There's a couple.
The real pisser is that suddenly it's convenient to do a bottom 3 now.
Again, after a bottom 2 last week.
The last week where we only had bottom 2, and it's just like, why are we doing bottom 3? Why is Katya here? Just because she took a little bit of time getting through the challenge, she turned it out in the final product. It should have been only Roxy and Alyssa. The fact that Alyssa went home after she's won a challenge and has never been in the bottom, I feel like that's ridiculous. And for the girls to be like, well, that's not fair that you feel that way, when...
It's the difference between how Alyssa played the game with saving Katya and how the rest of the girls said they would play the game.
Yeah.
Which was whoever got the harshest critiques. From the judges' perspective, from Michelle and Todrick's perspective, Alyssa gave them the most problems in the moment. Yeah, Roxy had some problems, but she made them still laugh because she charmed her way through it with the whole sequence. So I think to that end, like in their minds, Alyssa just really was the worst of the two of them when it came to how badly she did in the thing. Like literally, how many times do fwa, like,
oh,
and here's the
God.
thing about that. Here's the thing about that. You know that was real. You know it wasn't just one of those things where they just kept repeating the same footage because she said something other than doodah, but something different every single time. So, just from that perspective for them, she did worse than Roxy. As far as the outfit goes, you couldn't argue with Roxy's outfit.
No.
It was a stunner. And then Alyssa's was really interesting, but again, it was that editing thing where they were still like, there's a lot going on here. And it doesn't have that finesse that it needed. You took the idea and you took it too far.
Yeah.
So she did get the harsher critiques to that end.
I'm very much a proponent, and I know Drag Race doesn't exist this way, but I'm very much a proponent of like, if you do badly multiple times in a row, you need to go. You should not be staying. And someone who has performed well and has not fallen the bottom should stay. And that's not how Drag Race works. I wish it did. I'm a wishful thinker. I would have sent home Roxy. But the reality is that Alaska's never going to send home Roxy. It doesn't matter if Roxy's in the bottom 7 times in a row. She will never, ever do it. And the reality is that Alyssa's competition. Alyssa has very strong competition, and Alyssa changed the game in their minds. And so in their heads, they're all thinking, well, if Alyssa gets on top again, she could send home whoever she wants. She clearly doesn't care about these special Fight Club rules that we've made. She'll send us home no matter who we are, and no matter what our critiques are. So let's get rid of her now so she can't do that.
All she did was, instead of going by who had the harsher critiques, all she did was say, but Katya's done better than Ginger. Katya's stood out more than Ginger. Ginger kind of only has so many cards to play, and she lost 2 of them in her sandwich this morning. So all Alyssa said was, if anything, Alyssa screwed herself over by saving Katya. So by that logic, I think you're right. I think like Fifi especially was looking at Alyssa as major competition. But God bless her, Alyssa was not too smart in saving Katya. Because if she was going to play the game, she would have sent Katya home.
Yeah, because Katya was competition.
Save Katya. Because Katya is someone, even though Katya was in the bottom again, it wasn't deserved. There was no justification behind it. She's proven that she's got a little more to, threaten with. Before we get into it, I would like to make it clear, I am not bashing Fifi. One of the bigger problems is that in comparison to Roxy, who is literally a complete 180 from how she was on her season. Fifi's improvements seem so much smaller. They seem marginalized by, contrast. Fifi is showing some insecurities on this season, and I think it's coming out in passive-aggressive ways. I think there's a way that you can express your disdain and your frustration with her attitude and with how she's acting. I don't think it necessitates death threats or calling her an ugly whatever or an awful whatever or whatever things are saying, because I scrolled through the tweets and they are awful.
For those of you who have lived under a rock, Fifi has been tirelessly tweeting about how she's over Drag Race, how she's over the show and the producers and this and that. The long and the short of it is that it's kind of unprofessional, and I feel like she's pulling a Carmen Carrera and being like, well, fuck all these people, fuck all of them, this and that. And their motivations are very different, but it's just like, without Drag Race, you would just be another bar queen like the rest of us. But she keeps blaming the edit. She keeps saying that the producers aren't taking responsibility for everything. And as someone who has applied for the show, it says very specifically in the guidelines that the producers will do their best to present you in the most positive way possible. So that means they're not going to take clips of you saying different words and mesh them all together to be like, "Hail Satan, I hate RuPaul," and all of his fans. Like, they're never going to do that and like edit words together that you didn't say. They're going to do whatever they can to make you look the best that you are able. But if you don't give them anything to do that, you can't blame the edit. And Fifi keeps saying, I was promised a redemption. But it's like, if you're not actively trying to do that, like what Roxy is clearly very doing, you can't blame anybody but yourself for what you're giving to the producers.
Ever since reality television started becoming a thing, people who got a bad rep because of the reality show they were on have always been quick to cry out, I was edited to look that way. Omarosa, we're looking at you. And they can edit it to look a lot of ways. They certainly can. They can, edit somebody saying something shady and then put a clip of somebody being offended. Even if those conversations happen on 2 different days, they can make it seem like that. But what's the key there? You still said something shady. And listen, nobody's editing Michelle Visage to not look like a complete and utter bitch this season. Mm-hmm. And we know she's saying some positive critiques. They're just not showing them.
Totally.
So when you go into something like this, you have to count on the worst of you making it on air. And so only present the best of you, even if it's at the detriment of seeming a little boring.
A lot of people were really quick to praise Adore for leaving for when, the show wasn't really treating her right. She felt like her mental health was at stake. And now Fifi's doing the same thing and people are villainizing her. But I almost feel like it's a different situation, because it's like Fifi's trying to blame other people for how she's being presented, but she presented herself that way in the first place. Adore was upset because of whatever was said to her about what she does. And she was being critiqued for how she looked when that's not what she does. She's not a look queen. She's a performer. And nobody's criticizing Fifi, what she's doing. They're criticizing her as a human being. And I think her insecurities are coming out. And it's just like, but people wouldn't be saying these things to you if you weren't coming off that way. And it's never okay to give death threats or anything of that nature. But to be upset that like, oh, people don't like me, they think I'm being a bitch. It's just like, embrace it, you're a bitch. And it's like, I think Katya said it in her Hey Queen, like, when has it ever been a bad thing that a drag queen was a bitch? It's a novelty that a drag queen is nice. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, if you're a bitch on the show, embrace it, be a bitch. Yeah. Let everybody, that's what Willem does. Willem revels in it. And who knows how Willem's mental state is, but Willem embraces that character. And if that's who the show is going to make Fifi out to be, then be the skankiest skank that you can be. Be like Easy
Keep on hoeing, you hoe.
Keep on hoeing. Be the biggest bitch that the world has ever known if that's what they're going to treat you like. Don't try to, do your best to preserve your image, but I don't know. All that to say, I feel like there's a lot of immaturity happening on Fifi's side in trying to cast blame on other people rather than looking at herself and saying, maybe I'm the problem. Because this has happened now in 2 seasons. And what Roxy did was look at herself and say, I had a problem. And so I'm not going to do this again. And Fifi's saying in the editing room, I told him I wasn't going to say certain things and the editors were mad at me. and my story producer was mad at me. But it's just like, but you can do what Roxy's doing and present yourself in the best way possible in the workroom, in the challenges, and then not say shady shit when you're backstage. So that face crack at the end of the episode, when they walked in the workroom and it was like the start of the new episode, I was like, what the fuck is happening? And all the girls are in the fucking mirror. That was the coolest shit that has ever happened on RuPaul's Drag Race ever. I am really, really hoping that Tatiana comes back, but since Alyssa went, I wouldn't be mad if Alyssa came back. And I feel like Alyssa's had the shortest amount of time that she's been gone, and so she deserves it more. But because Adore left, I would totally not even be upset at all if they brought back Tatiana and Alyssa.
I want Tatiana or Alyssa to come back. Oh, yes, there was one very important thing that we missed.
What's that?
How fucking good RuPaul looked.
Ru looked amazing.
That
wig, the dress, everything
that
was
fantastically tacky zebra print over fish scales that made me laugh.
It scalped me, and I had to use my same wig from last week because I was that scalped. It's really crunchy right there. What?
It literally looks like spider webs.
The problem with a lot of my wigs is like after a while they start to look like somebody like just had a big cum fest in them and then just let it dry.
She's not a wig queen. She
a
never
wig
said
queen.
she was a wig queen.
I never said I was anything.
You know what she is?
I said it was garbage. So next week, a queen is returning to the competition. We don't know if it'll just be a queen returning or if it'll be a queen returning and somebody leaving. It's gonna be an event worth seeing. Who do you want to see go home? Who do you want to see come back? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Victory Lap. We will see you all again next week, whether you want us to or not. Bye.